Chapter 6055. What great news? Margaret couldn't help but raise her eyebrows and asked curiously. What kind of good news is it? Can it be called such great news? Sister Sun said happily, aren't you curious about what the young master is doing? What corporation did he reach with the Rothschild family? I asked Miss Lin, and she said that the young master has reached a secret agreement with Simon, the patriarch of the Rothschild family. Master Wade gave him a pill in exchange for part of his cash and a complete set of AI models. A complete set? Margaret's eyes widened. Is it the most powerful AI model currently invested by the Rothschild family? Yes. Sister Sun nodded heavily. Margaret quickly asked, this model is now the biggest outlet for internet technology. Its future market value will not be less than hundreds of billions of dollars. And it has also been elevated to a strategic level by the United States. From software to hardware, it is banned from external sales. How did Charlie do it? Sister Sun said, Miss Lin didn't reveal too much to me. But I believe that there should be some restrictions. Margaret nodded slightly and said excitedly. So it seems that Nvidia has recently delayed the delivery of graphics cards for other companies for a reason. It should be that the products are transferred to the Rothschild family. And only they have such influence. After saying that, Margaret added, since everything is in a secret operation, the AI model promised by the Rothschild family to Charlie will most likely not be announced to the public. In other words, Charlie will most likely want an identical set of things. But the Rothschild family will not do it for commercial use. It will not be announced to the outside world. In this case, you can understand why the Rothschild family agreed. Sister Sun smiled and said, Madam, if the young master gets a complete set of AI models, he will be able to face the warrior's den in the future. He will definitely be able to take more initiative when doing it. Margaret smiled knowingly and sighed, there are so many things that AI can do. Plus Charlie now has Duncan Lee to assist him. So he can definitely get twice the result with half the effort. Maybe it will bring unprecedented trouble to Victoria. After saying that, Margaret stood up and said to Sister Sun, Sister Sun, get ready, it's time to leave Aurus Hill. Margaret's purpose in coming to Aurus Hill was initially she wanted to meet Nanako Ito and find a way to help her gain enlightenment. After Nanako gained enlightenment, she stayed in Aurus Hill and kept paying attention to Charlie's actions in the United States. After it was official that Sifang Baozhuang returned to China, she wanted to convey a message to Charlie not to practice the 9 mysterious heart decisions in the 9 mysterious scriptures preface. Now that her goals have been successfully achieved, staying in Aurus Hill will only increase her risk of exposure. After all, Aurus Hill not only has her son Charlie, but also Maria, a wise and almost demonic being. Margaret is also afraid that they will find out if she continues to stay here. So it is best to leave as soon as possible. When she left Aurus Hill, Charlie was sitting at the dinner table at his grandma's house with some embarrassment. Grandma kept asking him questions, and his uncle at the dinner table was also very enthusiastic. But his Aunt Tessie had always been a little taciturn. At first, Charlie was afraid that she would ask about Pavel at the dinner table. So he felt a little embarrassed from the moment he walked in. But seeing that she didn't speak much, the embarrassment in his heart became even more obvious. Although Grandma and Uncle asked many questions, they did not ask about Pavel. It seemed that they had reached a tacit agreement to never mention this topic. After lunch, Charlie chatted with his grandmother for a while before saying goodbye and leaving. When the old lady saw that Charlie was leaving, she stood up and said, Charlie, Grandma will take you out. At this time, Tessie, who had been silent, stood up and said, Mom, please rest while I see him off. Charlie knew that his aunt probably wanted to talk to him privately, so he nodded and said, Yes, Grandma, don't bother. Grandma also knew that her little daughter must have wanted to ask her grandson, so he nodded and said, Okay, let your aunt see you off. The aunt and nephew walked out of the villa gate one after another and came to the yard. Tessie couldn't bear it. She asked Charlie, Charlie, tell the truth to your aunt, is Pavel dead? Charlie was not surprised at all by her question and nodded very frankly. Yes, Aunt, Pavel is already dead. Tessie pursed her lips and asked again, how did he die? Charlie replied, he was burned to death in the fire. But there were no clues left, and the ashes were all disposed of. Which is basically the same as evaporated. Tessie nodded lightly. She knew before that Charlie went to New York, and not long after he went to New York.